Europe descended into chaos as a result of religious wars. Resources were used, money and population declined, commerce was stopped, and generally, economic prosperity was low. England and France were very unstable, each having a civil war during this time period. Until these countries were able to reach political stability, economic turmoil was inevitable.
During this time period of political and economic destitute for these larger powers, the Dutch Republic began to have a golden age. The industrious Dutch were able to secure the position of Europe's middleman in trade. This was due to other countries being too unstable to trade, a need for a strong merchant marine because of the Turks having possession of Constantinople, and the strong relationships that the Dutch had to build with its other countries.
Unfortunately for the Dutch, this golden age did not last forever. Political stability in England due to a strong centralized government and the adoption of mercantilist policies are what inevitably doomed the Dutch. Here is history professor Juanita Taco Burrito Mexico Exploradora with some insight.
My name is Hillary. Okay, so foreign trade in the late 17th century. Okay guys, let me tell you what this is about, okay? So France and England stabilized, so they no longer needed the Dutch to export and import for them. Also, England had their restoration colonies, and with the Asiento, the slave trade they acquired from Spain, foreign exportation reached unprecedented levels. As you can see by this chart, during the time period, trade prospered immensely, making the English and the colonists extremely affluent. There was not much to complain about America and England, unless of course you were a slave being victimized by the coldness of harsh economics and being dehumanized by degrading owners. But otherwise, it was great.
The mercantilist policies of nations made colonization more and more crucial. Due to other colonies putting up high tariffs and promoting their own internal economies, England's trade in continental Europe began to slow. The woolen trade that England's economy relied on was shrinking due to other countries developing their own textile. Although trade within continental Europe slowed, trade with the colonies expanded greatly and the English economy reached unprecedented levels of prosperity. England used colonies for sources of raw materials and a large market to export manufactured goods to.
Due to the War of Spanish Succession, England secures the Asiento from the Spanish, a monopoly on the slave trade in Africa. Millions of innocent Africans were forced, and although the economy boomed, its success was derived from the scarred backs of human beings. It was a tragic and unjust time, but ridiculously profitable. At its peak, 80,000 slaves a year were transported to the Americas, not including the 10 to 15% that died on the way there. The African slaves contributed 80% of all products made in America with cheap sugar, coffee, tobacco, rice, and late cotton.
England adopted the shore method of trading, which was less expensive. European ships sent boats ashore or invited dealers out to the ships. This allowed easy movement along the coast from market to market, and it made departs easier. African kings waged war in Africa with each other in order to gain a monopoly on the sale of their own people. In addition, if one committed a crime in Africa, the sentence may be slavery in the New World, and this treatment and sale of human beings was considered a legitimate business practice by the Europeans. It was a sick, disgusting time, and no one cared enough because they were too busy lining their pockets. One day, when we had a smooth sea and moderate wind, two of my wearied countrymen, who were chained together, preferring death to such a life of misery, somehow made through the nettings and jumped into the sea. Immediately another, quite dejected fellow, who on account of his illness was allowed to be allowed of his irons, also followed the example. Two of the wretches were drowned, but they got the other, and afterwards flogged him unmercifully for preferring death to slavery. Olanda Equiano, or Gustavus Vasa, The Middle Passage, 1793.
Yo dog, white people got no chill for that though, ain't no hold up. For real, they be some jive turkey, John Stamos looking-like fools. You already know I got a bone to pick. Shout out to Migos and Bobby Shmurda. Hey yo, free Prof Torque, I ain't do this.
Until 1750, citizens of Europe blissfully accepted the act of slavery. In 1775, a peaceful mass movement in Great Britain happened, and in 1807, Parliament abolished the slave trade. But the abolition of the slave trade did not close the book on slavery. The Africans continued to be exploited for many years in the colonies.